Greetings and welcome to another edition of ALN Thursday at 3. And today, Christina Benty, who's the owner of Strategic Leadership Solutions, is joining us again. And she's also an authorized partner at Everything DISC and board of governor for Royal Roads University. And she has a tagline that she has at the bottom of her emails that I just had to share. May your bravery outweigh your anxiety. May your successes surpass your challenges. May you hold the tension between your reality and your dreams with wonder. And I just think that's just great. And really look forward to getting into the discussion. But first, we would like to thank our patron members, Jacobs, Definitive Logic, a Mantech company, Onuma, ABS Quality Evaluations, and CGI. And all of our organizational members, we couldn't do this, and the activities that we're doing, which includes going to Capitol Hill again on March 8th. More senators are interested in talking with us. And so thank you to all of our organizational members. And next week, we're going to have Jack Dempsey, general partner with the Asset Management Partnership, an ALN organizational member, and he's involved in the U.S. tag to ISO 55000, has some things to report on the many activities that he's involved with. So we look forward to seeing you then too. But let's get on with our talk with Christina Benty. How are you doing, Christina?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm super happy to be here and always never turn down an opportunity to talk about asset management.
Well, thanks so much for being with us. And we haven't talked since last fall, so can you update us on what you've been up to?
Oh, sure. So one of the things that I am focused on right now, obviously, I do a lot of work in the asset management space. However, I'm really working with my clients to change the narrative around asset management and helping them to see it not as a thing, as a plan, as a as a roadmap, but actually as a process that they engage in, and that it and the goal is to make it ubiquitous throughout the organization, to take those the siloed conversations and drop the silos, drop the hierarchical nature of asset management, and really help my clients see asset management is ubiquitous throughout the business that you do. And that has been my focus with my clients. So that's what I'm
So,
working on. I'm doing lots of writing, lots of planning, and lots of speaking, particularly around that leadership piece that's required when it comes to managing assets for sustainable service. And it actually really requires a why are we doing this? And it's because we want to make sure that the services that are provided in a sustainable, safe, secure fashion. It's kind of like, well, duh.
yeah, yeah. So I mentioned the Army Corps of Engineers and Bureau of Reclamation report. And in their asset management section, they say, we've been doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing, but there are now ways to do this better. And we're implementing them to boom, 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 boom. So I'm going to be using that to help explain what you just said to establish a culture. You're talking about culture change.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the change in the culture is our climate and our planet. The single asset that keeps us all alive
Yeah.
is suffering greatly and is negatively impacting us. And that is a real issue that was theoretical before, but now dollars and cents are being able to be placed on that because the tools we have are increasing in power and we can see things that we haven't done. So it's not that people haven't cared about this. It's not that people didn't care about their citizens before, but now there's new ways of being able to address it. And so what are some of the things that you find are successful to help organizations transfer to the position that you think is good for them?
So one of the key things is actually at the relational level. We're experiencing, and I'm sure I live in British Columbia, but I work all over Canada. And one of the things that I have observed is the fact that we're experiencing a poly crisis. We're experiencing a housing crisis. We're experiencing a healthcare crisis, a climate crisis, an environmental crisis, opioid crisis. That the number of challenges that we're facing require a level of leadership, conscious leadership, and brave leadership like never before. And so raising the level of consciousness this poly crisis has provided us an opportunity to actually have some meaningful dialogue and drop, again, some of those silos that have historically kept us from talking to each other. Yeah. And because we're because we're facing that challenge, we're also facing a labor shortage in Canada as well that's having an impact. So it's forcing the conversation, and there is a combination of people being very activated right now, people being agitated, activated, anxious. And one of my philosophies is life is what you pay attention to. And so turning our focus towards what are the things that where do we actually have control? Where do we need to be brave and tell the truth about our situation, and then look for micro steps to make a difference in a positive direction rather than panicking. Like at this time, we do not lead leaders that are going to be panicking, activated, overly responsive to other people's, and particularly their citizens, being overly responsive to the fear and anxiety that exists, but actually bring their calm, grounded, non-anxious presence into the room, into the organization, and start to operate from a place of curiosity. And that's why I like the word wonder and curiosity. What's working, and what do we need to do to address the challenges that we're facing? And it really starts off with it starts off with breaking down those silos and having conversations about how do we do the work that we need to do. So for local government in particular, it's what do we do? Like, what services do we provide? What level of service do we provide? And then how do we ensure that we're making decisions that ensure that those services are sustainable? And then you have to take climate change into consideration. You have to take expectation management into consideration. You have to look at new ways of doing things, knowing that you cannot continue to operate in those silos that you have historically operated in. So it's it's changing the narrative and really building relational capacity, because we actually have, and particularly here in BC, I think we're doing very well in terms of the amount of data and information that we have. But how do we take that data and information and start utilizing it to make good decisions? And that requires leadership, and that requires brave, bold leadership. And that's the big invitation right now is, are our leaders going to step up to the plate and start telling the truth, and then start telling the story about here's why we're making the decisions that we are making so that our future is in fact sustainable? Because on this current trajectory, lots of times I'll ask my clients, and particularly I'll ask the staff, I'll be like, what decisions, if your elected officials either ignore or they don't make or they do make, that are going to put you at risk in 5 years? What's going to take you out in 5 years? And so that's scalable. In your own personal life, you should be asking yourself that personally. If I continue to eat fries and hamburgers every day, what's going to be the consequences? And the same is true that if we ignore the services and service levels that we're currently providing and the assets that provide the services, then if we ignore that and we underinvest in that, then yeah, it's going to take us out. So no surprises there.
So that gets at something that I have come to understand is that the processes work, the tools work. It's a human behavior issue. So can you drill into some of the key things that you did a good list of the overall need for leadership that is visionary and is seeing what's really going on. What are some of the things that you suggest other than yoga and meditation or anything for leaders to get that perspective that you talked about? How did they get there?
I think building those courage muscles takes it takes self-awareness first of all. What are your own triggers? Where do you get activated? So for example, for elected officials, when their council chambers, and I've had this happen when I was mayor, your council chambers they're full of people, their chambers are full of people that are angry and frustrated or fearful and anxious. How
Yes.
do you make sure that you don't match their anxiety? And how do you bring the temperature down in the room? So notice when you get triggered and you get fearful because your chambers are full, how do you calm yourself down and make sure that you're coming into the room calm and grounded? And like I said, that non-anxious presence. Also, inviting difficult information and asking your staff to be less measured in their approach. I'm a big believer in building internal capacity by bringing the whole system in the room and having those larger systemic conversations. And because we have so many small local governments, it's way easier to do, but they don't do it. And I'm a big.
I object. I object to that. I don't think size makes any difference because if you're the volunteer mayor of a rural town that has a police station, a fire station, a library, and a school, you're doing other work and it's a big deal for you to be volunteering to be mayor.
Yeah.
So the size, it's the same issues whether you're president, or mayor, it's important and it's critical to people getting fresh water. And I love the last time you talked with us is that, if your toilet doesn't work, you call the city.
Yeah.
If you can't flush your toilet, you don't call the president of the United States, you or the head of Canada, you call your local people. That's critical issues for people living every day. Water, transportation, communications. That's the
Safety, communications, garbage, recycling, trails, recreation, water, sewer, all of the things that actually we rely on every day. I was working in a small community this summer, and one of the exercises that I did is I met with each department and outlined what service do you provide and how does it get embedded into the larger context of the organization and the services that the whole organization provides. And then even identifying at a high level, what are the assets that provide those services? And then where do they, again, applying a systemic lens to the conversation, your town hall and your GIS department and your all of those different departments, you need those different departments and different services, your IT department, all of those things contribute to the functionality of your assets in your community. Have you accounted for that and mapped out the system so that you can articulate that? And one of the things that we did when I was working in this community is just do a high level overview of here's all the assets that provide the services and here's how they're linked, and then created a document for the elected officials so that they could then, when people complain to them, they could actually see, they could be on the offensive rather than the defensive. So we identified, here's all the services that we provide. First of all, these services, these are necessary. They provide not only your quality of life, but necessity of life, like water and sewer and fire protection and all of those. But then there's also quality of life services as well. So making sure you identify those and defining that level, like what's the service level we're currently providing. And if you don't know, then you don't actually have a frame of reference to be able to determine, is this service level sustainable in the long run? If our recreation facility is open 24 hours a day, is that sustainable? I don't know. So it's really about having a system-wide conversation, bring everyone into the room, have a system-wide conversation to identify, first of all, organizationally, do we even know what we have and what it does and how it's interconnected? Start there. And then what does it cost to provide that level of service? Is it sustainable in the long run? And then what are our forms, like, relying on taxation? It's changing the narrative that taxes are the fees that we provide for the services we receive, and shifting that narrative, because the anti-tax narrative is actually an anti-service narrative. What are we doing if you're not willing to pay for it? Do you want water 6 days a week? I doubt it. And here's what it costs to get water, clean, clear, fresh, safe water from the source to you, so that you have access to the water that you need for your bottle, like your entire life. Those are those are non-negotiables, but they're not talked about in a way that in a way that helps people connect the dots between what they pay and the service they provide. So shifting that narrative, first of all, internally, because lots of times you will see elected officials running on a platform of, we're going to keep taxes in line, and we're going to fire the staff and reduce our staff. And it's like, based on what? Like, based on what? And so making sure that we're having the right conversation that takes time, and that you have to cultivate an environment that allows for those meaningful conversations that aren't defensive, and where you can drop the how do you build the relational currency between staff and the elected officials, so that they can talk about, here's where we are, and now how are we going to move forward? What's the future vision for our community that ensures that we're not putting future generations at risk?
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about those courage muscles. Before we went on air, you talked about the poly crisis that you see in Canada. I think it's happening in the United States, and I think it's happening around the world because of a number of reasons. But the thing that's, I think, important is we now have tools to address issues that haven't been addressed before. But the courage muscle is frequently built when people are so fed up about a crisis that they say, I've got to do something about this, even if I'm uncomfortable speaking in public, even, and you don't want to waste a good crisis. So how can leaders do some things to develop those courage muscles? Anything that you've seen or observed in your experience or training?
Well, now I'm actually going to get into sort of some of my philosophical bent around leadership. And
That's what we want from you.
Yeah. Because and I'm going to be speaking about this in Pittsburgh in the fall at the ICMA conference, and that's
the International City and County Management Association, and I will put a link up for that. But yes, go right ahead.
Awesome. So I'm going to be talking about anti-fragile leadership. and the importance of building your anti-fragile muscles. And so the premise of that, or the the philosophy around that, is actually connected to weight training. So bear
Oh,
with
I
me.
love it. No, perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah. So so um, I think there was a book called Anti-Fragile Leadership, or Anti-Fragile Disorder from, or Order from Disorder, or something like that. But it was a really good book, and it was it's a book about economics. However, one of the analogies that he used that I loved and grabbed onto was the analogy of weight training. So if you want to get stronger and healthier, and you go to the gym and you weight train, every time you go to the gym, you're not building muscle, you're actually tearing muscle down. So you go to the gym, you tear those muscles down, and you create micro tears in the muscle. And
Yes.
and then it is the rest and recovery that build the muscle. So you have to do both. You have to oscillate between creating micro tears and then rest and recovery, so that you can get stronger. So you can lift more muscle, or you can lift more weights when you go into the gym. Well, the same principle applies when you're building your leadership muscle. Is you want to stretch just beyond your comfort zone. You want to be able to push yourself just a little bit more, have those braver conversations, invite discomfort into the room, recognize that, yeah, this is a hard thing to talk about, set the stage for some of that difficult the difficult information, that data and information that you currently know, and hold the space for that place of discomfort. And so as a leader, where can I create micro tears in my system that's actually going to, and then how do I build rest and recovery into my process that allows me to recover. So here's how I'm applying it currently to organizations, and that is what I have observed is, in particular, local governments they've taken themselves to the gym, and they've stayed in the gym, and they keep lifting heavier and heavier and heavier weights, and they never rest and recover. And some of my recommendations to some of my clients has been, you need a strategic pause in your organization. Right now, you have gathered data that has indicated that you, say, for example, some of your core services don't have enough resources and investment in them. And what do? You focus on more. Let's do more. Let's keep expanding. Let's take on more services. Let's take on more responsibilities. And you fetter your limited resources and fetter them away from your core services. And I'm not saying that local government should just focus on core services. That is not community building. But maybe you need an organizational strategic pause so that you can catch up and figure out, where are we actually at. So sometimes, honestly, in my work, I'm going to say my job is asking questions. Like, I ask questions and people, oh, we haven't thought about that, or we haven't done that, or we haven't considered that. And the power of a good question to create an environment where, oh, we need to look at this. We need to take this broader, larger context into consideration, helps organizations take a strategic pause and figure out where they find themselves, instead of, again, all of the scattering. It's no different than doing your own personal it's scalable across your own personal life. Like, what's important to you? You think about your relationships, your family, your health, your finances, your career, all of those things. Do an audit and go, where am I fettering my limited resources? Because we don't have unlimited resources. where am I fettering my limited resources? And it starts by telling yourself the truth. And here's the beautiful thing about asset management is that provides you with the data and the information to tell yourself the truth.
That is just an excellent way of going from the micro of an individual to the macro of an organization. And so many people and so many organizations don't have that information, and they need to admit to themselves, I don't have the information I need to make the next decision.
Yeah.
And that leads to a great time for a strategic pause. So okay, I'm learning. I'm getting it. Excellent. So,
need to not have the information. But if you don't know, then you're not conscious of what you don't know. And here's when you know what you don't know, the invitation is to go, okay, let's pause and let's get curious about what we don't know.
and one of the things that we as the Asset Leadership Network don't know a lot about is actual leadership techniques. And can you quickly tell us about your upcoming conference you're going to in Mexico?
Oh,
Is
yes.
that
Yeah. So
tell us about that?
sure. So I'm attending a leadership conference and some leadership training down in Mexico. What a great place to go. And it's all, it's focused on personal and internal leadership. And again, building your own conscious awareness and where's your attention going. And like I said, it's very scalable. So the focus is on looking at what is some of my looking at, like I said, the same thing I said earlier. What is the how do I view the world? What is the context? What's the lens? What are some of my biases? What are some of my beliefs, my values? How do I view the world? And what are the things, and how do I make decisions? And what are the ways that I need to take other people's contexts into consideration in my decision making? And this is so important for elected officials because you, as an elected official, are now privy to information that your constituents are not privy to. They don't understand the millions of dollars it takes to run services and assets. And they may not understand why, say, for example, in the budget, you've got sidewalk inspections. They're like, why are we putting money in the budget for sidewalk inspections? Well, here's the rationale, and here's the context. Here's the how our organization operates. But you have to be able to take other people's values and their belief systems and their contextual reality into consideration so that you're a better communicator. And again, you're less defensive and more curious about other people's experience. And again, this is really important for elected officials to build that muscle in relationship to the staff, because sometimes the staff have their each of them have their expertise that they bring to the table, and your job is to get curious to develop your own understanding about the information that they are bringing, and then filtering it through the political lens so that you can make a decision based on the political reality and their expert advice. Their job is fearless advice, and your job is to figure out how to utilize that fearless advice for a sustainable future. And so, but it always starts internally, right? If you're sensitive and you don't take it other people's, you make up stories about people, and you're like, oh, that staff, they're just trying to get more money out of us for this reason. It's like,
yeah,
how do you know? How do you
right.
know? Do you know what it costs to provide this service? So
Okay, so it is always such a joy talking with you. When you come back can we discuss the possibility of you leading a web program on municipal leadership and something that we can offer that's special? Because we love your energy, we love your insights and experience, and want to bring your understanding to many of the leaders around North America, around the world. Well,
Absolutely. I have a leadership program and I'm ready to go. So
all right.
Well, it's about building muscles.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today. Really appreciate what you bring to the asset management community and for sharing it with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye. Thank you.